Good morning. I slept very well, though I was a little surprised to wake up to find Mia nestled into my arms. Perhaps they do things a bit differently in the High Tower. I was also slightly puzzled by the single sock that was tangled in my hair. Quite where that came from, I'm not sure I want to know. Mia also seemed well rested, but Seth, well, let's just say he looked like he had a bag of holding under each eye. All Seth heard during his night watch was the doors opening and closing below, and the dainty footsteps of the mare on whatever nighttime errands he was on. Upon waking and disentangling myself from Mia, I headed to my room along with Seth. The rose remained untouched, so I went over, picked it up, and put it in my hair, assuming there must be another druid somewhere with druidcraft, since there hadn't been any signs of rose bushes. Dave awoke in the medical bay, and seeing no sign of the doctor, he decided to go in search of the roundhouse-kicking wizard. Meanwhile, Mia had torn the white pages from some of her books. Well, I say her books, the books that she had borrowed from the doctor. She was using some of the wet paint from the rose to attempt to draw wanted posters for Amy. A remarkably good likeness, though the white paint on the white paper was a little hard to make out. I cast light on it to make it glow. Mia had put a bounty under it, 20 coins. I asked if she knew that Amy was definitely missing, and she replied that yes. She couldn't see her, so she was definitely missing. It was then that Dave entered the room, and Seth asked how he was feeling. Apart from a bit of a sore back, he wasn't too bad. He asked Mia why she wanted Amy, and Mia said she just wanted her. We deduced that perhaps the mayor had left the rose for me, thinking I'd been coming on to him. We went down to find him and came across a table set with 4 plates of breakfast and a piece of paper. Whilst Dave embarked upon devouring as much of all 4 breakfasts as possible, Seth took the paper and tried to read it secretly, but I was able to see over his shoulder. I shan't bore you with all the details. Suffice to say it was a lengthy letter and as flamboyant as the person who had written it. It mentioned Seth's betrothal to his daughter and that he was currently out of town. Since the mayor was currently absent and the captain of the guards, Pogrom, was away at Highwall, that left Dave as the highest-ranking official. He talked to Seth and Mia and Animal Person. Since he'd forgotten my name, I subtly tried to cast light on his bum, but a natural one meant that he was absolutely aware of what I was doing. It was quite awkward. But it was glowing. Seth told me to make it stop, so I did, and tried to cast it on him instead. Another natural one put paid to that as Seth grabbed me in an arm lock, and then Dave got me to cast light on my face to teach me a lesson. I learned that he really doesn't like a bright white glowing head in his face. We made our way to Highbucks, a well-known coffee shop which Mia just happened to have a loyalty card for. As we walked, Dave questioned Seth a bit more about who he was and why he was here. Seth told us that he worked for a commander, and his name wasn't actually Seth. He had a leather-bound notebook full of names. I pressed him for the name of his commander, and he didn't know. It turns out he doesn't even know what his real name is. We passed a guy, smoking, standing outside a clothing shop. He asked if we wanted some new threads. Dave, being in charge of the city, asked him what he was smoking. After a lecture on drugs, he handcuffed him. I went through the man's pockets and got 2 spliffs. Dave ordered Mia to roundhouse kick him. She refused, but Seth volunteered, killing him as he snapped his neck. I ineffectually cast mending, causing the bones to fuse. his head now facing completely the wrong way. I popped the spliff he'd been smoking back in his mouth, and we made our way to High Bucks as quickly and innocently as possible. Mia putting up a couple of posters on the way. High Bucks was bustling, painted in green with a woman with flowing hair as the logo. Not at all like any existing logos in your world. Dave entered, with me standing behind him, my face casting a glow upon him, like some kind of magical, mystical aura. I dropped it, but not before everyone had seen Dave enter like a god, making his way to the front of the queue. Whilst Dave was the focal point, Mia settled herself at a table and used Mage Hand to try to get herself the perfect cup of tea. Failing to do this unnoticed, she made her way to the counter. The fact that she was a wizard from Hightower earning her the first place in the queue, even before Dave. Once she had her drink, Dave handed things over to Seth to ask some questions. Seth was told he had to buy a drink before he could ask any questions. He ordered a small black coffee, saying he'd drink the barista's blood if she lied to him, and if she didn't return within 10 seconds. The barista quickly fiddled with some buttons and levers, returning with a mug of coffee. No water. Seth asked about Amy, but the woman had been working and hadn't seen the performance of the YMCA. Seth then asked about Sham and was told he had to have another coffee. But he did learn that Sham had recently won a coffee drinking contest and almost drowned in the process. Growing fed up, and with a flash of his weapons only earning him an indication to the sign which said, "No violence," he turned and shouted to the customers that he wanted information on a wizard called Amy, a fish boy wizard called Sham, Lady Winter, and the Order of the Dawn, and would reward anyone with 20 gold pieces. He had a lot of people shouting random things at him. While Seth and Dave went to talk to the people, Mia going with Seth to take notes, I went behind the counter and started serving customers. I made a decent amount in tips while Seth threatened, eventually finding out from a lady that she had seen the YMCA performance and that Amy had run off. She hadn't gone towards the port, but had run in the direction of the animal shop rather than following the guards. Seth then inquired about Lady Winter. The woman wanted more money, so I took over a large slice of cake, setting it down in front of her, casting guidance on Seth as I passed, going back to my place behind the counter. She informed him that Lady Winter was a friend of an acquaintance of hers, and a very difficult person to get hold of. She didn't actually live in Highport, but was staying in one of the motels there. As Seth wanted to know more about the Order of the Dawn, she told him she had enough gold now, and didn't need any more. I took a bill for the cake, 30 gold pieces, over to her. She remarked that the cost had gone up a bit, and the other barista, my new colleague, told her it was on the house. She said that knowing the owner of the establishment came with its perks and left, easily avoiding Seth's attempt to grab her. Dave questioned another person about the Order of the Dawn, but he told Dave he knew nothing about them, but he did know about Amy. Dave asked if that was Amy who went towards the pet shop, and when the man said yes, Dave told him that was fine, he didn't need to know anything, and ushered him away. He then asked another patron, an aspiring author who had written quite a bit of fan fiction about the Order of the Dawn, a group of strong men looking after weaker men. The next person to be questioned was willing to have a private chat with Dave around the back. Mia decided to follow, still frantically taking notes. Seth decided to go along as well, since nobody was willing to talk to him after seeing some of his more intimidating behaviour. I remained behind the counter and chatted to my new colleague. She asked my name and I said, "Quiche Wearer," one of the names Dave had called me by earlier. She told me it was an odd name, and I replied that I didn't think my parents had liked me very much. She told me that the owner of the coffee shop was called Meg, but she was an odd sort and didn't come out front very often, but might be back in a couple of hours. I told her I was on a trial shift and hoping to find out if I'd got the job or not. Outside, Dave told the guy that they'd known each other for 3 minutes now, so they were tight. The man told Dave that 3 days ago he'd noticed a guard wandering about, but rather than wearing red, he was dressed in white. A tall, skinny guy with a scar on his left cheek, but behaving very oddly. He witnessed him heading towards the Cockroach Inn and going inside. Nobody goes inside, as it's very unsanitary, and after what happened there. He saw the man in white re-emerge, but wearing red. Dave told him that these men had been killing the guards. The man ran back into Highbucks shouting, and as people began to panic, I yelled out that someone had had too much caffeine again. They began laughing at him instead. Seth, Mia and Dave came back in and gathered around the counter to work out exactly what we'd learned. Sham had won a coffee drinking competition there. Amy had gone in the direction of the pet shop, and Lady Winter was somewhere in Highport. And there's apparently a good market for Order of the Dawn fanfic. Mia spotted a plaque with a picture of Sham carved into it and used Mage Hand to acquire it. I went into the back room and had a quick look around and ritually cast Detect Magic. I could tell there was some sort of magic in the drinks, the kind that would keep people coming back for more. Having earned a further 5 gold in tips, I decided to head off. The barista told me I still had about 20 minutes of my trial shift left. I told her that since Meg wasn't around, she wouldn't know. The barista asked if she should tell Meg I was sick, and I said yes. She told me I was her new best friend. I don't think I've ever had a best friend before. As we left, I told the group that I'd seen a monkey, much like the one the mayor seemed to be looking for, perched on the roof of the pet shop several times when I'd gone in. Dave decided to launch Mia onto the roof of the coffee shop. He flung her up, she failed to catch hold and came crashing down. I tried to catch her. As time slowed, her wanted posters gently unfurling around her. Then our faces collided, doing 4 points of impact damage each. Seth healed Mia for 5 points, and the 3 of us headed to the pet shop whilst Dave clambered onto the roof. He could see not only the pet shop, but a route across the rooftops that he thought might get him there a little quicker. As we reached the shop, the door was ajar, but it was obviously not open for business. Before we could enter, Dave crashed to the ground in front of us. So I guess technically he did get there first. I looked for the monkey. On the roof I saw a small blue hat with gold stars on it. I used Thorn Whip to grab it, setting it on my head like a fascinator, then went in. The owner was packing up and was less than happy to see me, the crazy woman from before. I asked if he'd seen a small monkey as the mayor wanted it back. He said he hadn't seen it for a little while now, but it had been on the roof. He mentioned a lady from Hightower had been in, looked around and then left. Dave said that we had a lady from Hightower with us, and the shopkeeper turned to Mia, who said she was looking for Amy. She was told that Amy had taken the monkey. The shopkeeper tried to sell us a flightless bat, which looked a lot like a rat with things stuck to its ears, and then asked if we had anything belonging to the monkey. I handed over the hat and he took it away, cast a quick spell that smelt of apples, and came back with a compass that he said would lead us to the monkey. I asked if he could give us one to lead us to the pseudo-dragon. He went away again, this time coming back with a cracked compass. I told him that I knew my fruit, and he was trying to fool us. Losing patience, Seth set the man, and the shop alight. The man ran out screaming. I grabbed 10 frames, which was all I could carry. I didn't want the animals to burn. The frames appeared to be empty, but animal noises were coming from them. Placing them against a nearby wall, I noticed various animals coming into view. Strange creatures with objects taped onto them to make them look a little more unusual. I didn't know how to get them out of the frames, so I just had to leave them there. Dave was anxious to see the compass, but I wasn't going to give it to someone who didn't even know my name. So I looked at it, seeing that instead of the usual compass points, there were colours of green, yellow, purple and blue. The colours of the Guardians. The compass was pointing to the west, but I convinced everyone it was pointing towards Lady Winter's motel. I felt only a slight twinge of guilt as Mia gazed deeply into my eyes, and I was unable to hide the longing in them, clearly conveying that there was something in that direction I really wanted. We headed that way, finding 2 motels, one with a green banner and one with a purple one. I headed for the purple one with Seth. Mia tried to stop Dave going into the green one, but ended up being dragged in with him. Both buildings looked very similar and standard, other than the cloths decorating them. Approaching the door, Dave could hear nothing, but I could hear the sounds of grunts and things being dragged about inside.
Just get a move on!
Right, to me!
Right.
To me then!
Dave and Mia went into the green motel, finding themselves at a reception desk, stairs on either side leading up to a balcony with a row of doors. A locked door and an open doorway were on the ground floor. As the interior was dim and Dave was human and therefore struggling to see, Mia prepared to cast Firebolt, then, realising it would most likely result in another arson attack, she decided against it, and Dave lit a torch. The place looked as if it had been deserted for quite some time. Cobwebs were everywhere, wrapped around door handles and almost gluing chairs to the floor. The door to the purple motel was locked, so Seth, with guidance from me, attempted to pick the lock. He could tell it was altered somehow and he couldn't get it to open. Seeing that that wasn't working, he gave it a roundhouse kick, just like he'd seen Mia do, and the door flew open. I was quite impressed, though I tried not to show it. Dave decided to leave the motel he was in, but Mia did not. The door slammed behind him, trapping her inside. The draft extinguished the torch, and she heard skittering noises filling the area, coming from all directions. Seth and I saw 2 small men moving chests. Spotting us, they dropped them and drew their weapons. I just glimpsed something moving in the alleyway. The voice of God asked us to roll initiative. And this, my friend, is where we must pause. But please, do come back. Who knows what fun might be in store?